Facebook is having a little bit of a problem today. Hello to all of those who are with us so far. Happy Sunday. Hope all is well. Hope you have your tea ready. If you do, let us know what kind of tea you're drinking. What's your favorite tea? Why is your favorite tea? Or just what your favorite tea is. You don't have to give us too much information. If you don't feel like it, we have our teas. We also have our home brew teas that are specific to the Room Collective, made by our wonderful Zaire, our herbalist, which will soon be for sale as well. How have your days been? Somebody say, hi, my name is this, and my day is great. I don't know, just drop it in and we can look at it when we're finished. One worder on how you're feeling today and prepping for the week, etc. Let's see, my word is, I'm alive. Yeah. You know, when you're in those spaces and you can kind of respond to lots of different things, lots of different emotions. I had a really good day yesterday. Okay, so alive is going to be my word. That's my transparent word for the day. I'm alive. Good alive, though. What's your word for the day?
The first thing that popped in my head was pensive.
Okay. You got pensive. These are all real things. What's your word?
Ready.
She's ready. She's ready.
She's ready. I'm ready.
Oh, wait. All right, so take that. What's your word?
Contemplate.
Okay. You got a pensive and a contemplative. All right. Might be the energy of the Sunday. Yeah. All right. We'll find out what Shakima's word is when she joins us. Just a second. We are also.
I could do it here, but I just need somewhere to put it in.
Okay, that was what we had. Hold on 1 second, y'all. Technical things.
I can log in here.
Yeah, see if we can tighten it and hold it in that space.
Not logging in here.
Okay. All right, so our second of many, soon to be many, tea and talks. We get together, talk with you all about topics that are important to us as women, topics that are important to taking care of the womb, topics that are important to just being healthy.
Yeah.
You know? Whatever it is, whatever you all want us to talk about, we'll talk about. It's that moment in space and time when we ask you all to relax, you know, and just have space to think, listen, chat, feel comfortable. If you're here and you're following, I want you all to take a deep breath and breathe in kind of all the goodness that you want for today, for tomorrow, for the week. And breathe out all the craziness of last week, the stress of yesterday, whatever it is, the bad dream, anything, any pain in your body. Do it again. Take another good big breath. Nice and full of that whole abdomen. And then breathe it all out, all of that stuff that you want to get rid of. All right, one more time, breathe it in again. All beautiful intention, beautiful colors, your favorite color, your favorite smells, your favorite visions. And then breathe out all bad smells, all bad colors, anything that happened, right? It's negative stimuli, okay? All right, so we are on the end of Black Maternal Health Week, right? So it's kind of fitting that our topic today is going to be about endometriosis, all right? We are passionate about all things related to healthy wombs and healthy living, and endometriosis is definitely a conversation that needs to be had, more specifically around or with women of color, because we are definitely facing it more from young ages. If I can tell you the young ages of conversations with nieces and daughters that have come to me with that as a journey, right? And there's so much to it. There's so much to it. And so we want to be able to talk about it, not even just so from a medical perspective, right? Because we're a holistic healing facility, healing group, and our approach is to attach all of our healing of our different organs and our different spaces and our different energies to the thing we're dealing with, right? So we don't want to talk about endometriosis, just from, you know, the medical perspective of I was diagnosed at this age, I use this to take care of it, yada, yada. We want to talk about how it affects you mentally, emotionally, spiritually, like your quality of life and what that journey looks like, okay? So if you joined us last time, if you follow us, you know that you see some familiar faces, and then also our mental health therapist, maternal mental health therapist, Tamara, who's not with us today. I believe she is actually on the live in the thread, but she's not here in space. You know us, and then you see a new face. All right, so this is my sister Shade, and she is here because she is an absolute endometriosis warrior. And so she has a journey, she has a story, and she wanted to be able to talk about it. And I also wanted her to be in the space to give some of the kind of conversation to what that journey looks like, right? Even to help ask maybe you guys some questions if you have any. So those of you watching who have family and friends who are dealing with endometriosis, even what we call dysmenorrhea, like very heavy, menstrual cycles, fibroids, because all of it is intertwined, right? So if you have any, then definitely share with them, let them know that we will be here with you till about 7 o'clock. All right? So let's see. Let's do a general conversation just about what it is, just in case you're with us and you don't exactly know what endometriosis is, right? So I'll say some things. If you will add in, please do. In a very light, non-medical way, right? Endometriosis is where the lining, the tissue, the endometrium, which is the inside of the uterus, right? It gets a little bit bold, if you say, right? It gets a little bit of attitude, gets a little possessive, a little controlling, for lack of a better word, and then it begins to kind of invade and move into other places. Like, it doesn't stay where it should stay. It overdevelops itself. It gets really bold and lit. That's how I like to speak medical words in different languages, right? I don't do medical leads. And then it moves. It starts moving to other places, like your ovaries and your fallopian tubes, right? Sometimes even on the outside of the uterus and on the back by the kidneys, right? And so what that means is as a cell, it still responds to the messages the way it would if it was inside the uterus, okay? So typically for a woman, when you have your menstrual cycle, right, you're bleeding and also the entire cycle, right? Your uterus, the cells inside your uterus are listening to certain messages. They're doing things. They're prepping, right? They're prepping to possibly hold the baby, and if not, then they're going to purge and cleanse. And so they're responding to these hormones a certain kind of a way, right? Slightly different from the fallopian tube, slightly different from the ovary, right? Definitely different from like the kidney, right? Or the outside of the uterus. The outside of the uterus doesn't need to do any of that. And so what happens with endometriosis is when that tissue moves to wherever it is, it's like if you had endometriosis tissue in your finger, right? Mm-hmm. And then that message from the brain goes, hey, it's time to build up tissue because you're about to get ready to feed a baby. That tissue in your finger is going to start responding to that message in the way the inside of the uterus would, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's not necessarily what you want everywhere. And so even when the message comes, okay, now get rid of it, you might even have a little cramp in your finger, right? Technically, this is a little bit extra, but just so you get my point, right? So essentially, the conversation around is these women are responding to having menstrual cycle life where they shouldn't, if that makes sense, in non-medical leads. Any input?
That was beautifully stated. I can't follow up.
Okay.
I never thought of the figure. That was great.
Yeah, the pediatrics I gave you an extra.
That's right.
Yeah.
So what's funny, that was actually an episode of House where the girl had a skin graft and they had taken endometrial lining cells and put it like a patch on her back.
That's smart.
And so, this is House, this is Hollywood.
Mm-hmm.
So she ended up, freaking out and having like all these extreme symptoms that didn't fit the menses thing. And it wasn't until they started doing skin scraping
that they were able to figure
that
it out.
they figured out. The House was able to figure it out in 30 minutes. So yeah, that is actually true. And then from a spiritual aspect, we, as we've talked about before, the womb holds everything. Everything sits right here. The bad breakup, the bad moment at your job, the person that cut you off in traffic. If you overdose yourself watching COVID news, that's trapped in your womb space too. And what happens is your womb gets full energetically, and what happens is the tissue will expand out. So just how Jake was talking about it going to the outside of your womb or going to your kidneys, it can spread all the way to your appendix. It can spread to your kidneys, and you'll actually have those tissue cells moving to try to engulf you
Mm-hmm.
and all that negativity and just stuff.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's a life to itself.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I would like is to kind of let Omishade have a little bit of a conversation. I'm going to ask her some questions to kind of push her, lead her with her commentary. But that's the reason why the conversation has to be more holistic in the approach, right?
Yeah.
So typically, you have this situation and, we live in a place kind of dominated by Western society, right? So whether the good or bad of that, it means that medicine is approached in that way, right? So if we took this whole conversation and moved it to China, right? Where they may practice traditional Chinese medicine, not necessarily the Western medicine that they now practice, the conversation will look different. Doesn't mean that the thing couldn't happen, right? Endometriosis could be a thing. Definitely lots of reasons why it probably would not be a thing, but we'll talk about that in a minute. If it's a thing there, they look at it differently, they approach it differently, right? Because they heal the body from a different kind of perspective. Same thing if we went to India, anywhere where the methodology of how you practice medicine changes, the conversation was different. Here, the conversation becomes, okay, this is a problem, let's see if we can either manage it with more hormones, manage it with surgery, can't manage it with that surgery, okay, we're just gonna have to let's just take the whole thing out, right? And so because that's the conversation, and because so many of us are having this experience, and so many of us are having this conversation and experience starting at a younger age, you have the dynamic not only of a woman feeling all of the different spiritual and chemical reactions that go along with just the monthly experience of this thing, but on top of that, you now have the external stresses and emotional stresses and spiritual stresses of somebody saying, you know what, let's just go ahead and take just take it out, right? Because and the implications of that are like, they're great, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because not only is it going to now affect you, and Omishade can speak to this when she talks, not only does it also affect you biochemically, because now you don't have the uterus process, right? But you also have this whole conversation about, wait, that's where I give birth from. Like, what happens now, right? You now taken from me my ability to do this thing. Does that mean I'm faulty? All the things that go with that, right? So because there's so much in that space, it's important for a womb collective to exist, for a conversation that exists where I don't just take out your uterus and then send you on your way, right? It would even look different.
Literally.
It would even look different if that happened and then they said, okay, this is your follow-up. You're going to see this mental health therapist, right? You're going to go to this counseling group. You're going to drink this tea. You're going to do this. You're going to have, early hot flashes. So you're going to do like all of these things. Those aren't. It's not put into that context, right? And so, but it is. It's a holistic thing. It cannot be ignored, right? So that's why we exist. That's why we talk about it. That's why we want to talk about it. And that's why it's important to have someone who can kind of share all of those. Because when you're the person, you experience it holistically, even if you aren't treated holistically. Yeah. You can't help but experience it holistically because your body is responding to the thing. Right. Make sense? Mm-hmm. So yes. So,
but before you start,
yes.
I just want to add one thing. So when you were talking about the therapy that goes like, you take it out and you need the counseling mm-hmm. with it, just so y'all have a comprehension of what that means. If you had a hip replacement, okay, mm-hmm. you're going to get at least 3 to 4 months of physical therapy. At least.
Yes.
Afterwards.
Yes.
Your surgeon is going to check on you for, you're going to have, I think, like 3 to 4 visits after surgery with your surgeon, okay? If you, and with all respect to my LGBT community, if you are a person going through reassignment, you have to go through at least 2 or 3 years worth of mental counseling before you do the procedure. Mm-hmm. And then after your procedure, you still have another 2 or 3 years worth of counseling that you have to do. Yet we have a lot of doctors in allopathic medicine who are willing to take the one thing, mm-hmm. the one thing that, in our own personal self makes us women, the ability to reproduce. Mm-hmm. They take it away and we don't even get a, call me tomorrow. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? You get your regular follow-up with your, with your physician, but that's only one time. Right. You're not going to talk to you again after that.
It's life changing.
It's completely life changing,
Yeah.
especially if it's something that has to happen when you haven't had the chance to give or reproduce.
Yeah.
It's one thing if you're 50 years old. And you've had 4 or 5 kids, you may be like, whatever, take it, I'm done. But even still, but if you're in your early 20s and you haven't had the chance to even do that yet, so that's why we say that it's important for a Womb Collective. It's important to have these conversations, and there is no shame in having this conversation with your 16-year-old.
Yes.
None at all. Yes, it does get kind of interesting of how to have a conversation, but have the conversation. Because I can tell you right now, if I knew a 10th of what I know now when I was 15 years old, 14 years old, I wouldn't have gone through half of the drama I went through with my week.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I definitely want to come back to that whole piece of starting to talk to the teenagers. In a minute, I don't want to get too far ahead without letting you talk, but when we do, somebody remind me.
We got you.
That I thought about it on the way here. So, Michelle, if you could just kind of talk to us, briefly give us your journey, your story, things that just, let it flow.
Okay. So, briefly. Okay.
Yeah, she's like,
so I started my cycle when I was 11. It was a month before my 12th birthday. And my cycles have never been easy. They were always super painful. Like, I couldn't function. I would be nauseous and throwing up and couldn't really walk to the bathroom. Would be literally crawling from my bed to the bathroom. I would have to miss school. But I wasn't diagnosed with endometriosis until I was in grad school. And so when I went away to Nebraska, and they were just hitting me harder, it almost seemed. So every time I had a cycle, my friends were taking me to the emergency room because I had to take, I took so much medicine. I'm so grateful that I don't, that addiction is not one of the things that I struggle with. And I'm also thankful that my liver held up because I had to take so much medication to just take an edge off of it. Like multiple types, and the milligrams were high. But then I would go to the hospital and they would give me more medication. And then they would send me home. And we went through this cycle, for months. And then my friends were like, okay, something's got to give. You guys just keep giving her more and more medicine. And then there was just one doctor there one day that said, I think that you might have endometriosis. Has anyone ever said that to you? And I was like, no, what's that? And so I had a laparoscopy. And I was 21. And they told me I would just have, incision to my navel. When I wake up, I would be fine and could go about my life. When I woke up, I had 4 incisions, and they were all pulling on each other. And I was like, what happened? And they said you have had endometriosis, and you had so much of the lining was in your stomach cavity that we had to do extra incisions to get everything. So my healing time was, it was increased. And I'm in grad school at the time, and I'm trying to, finish grad school, and I'm away from home. I had my family at Nebraska, but I wasn't with any of my biological family. So, what a lot of people don't realize is that endometriosis is, like, the pain is debilitating, but it's also depressing. Like, having that much pain on you, you can't do anything about it. It takes a lot out of you energetically, too. And so I was literally like, I just don't want to do this anymore, literally, because it was just lots of medication, and my cycle was never like, whatever regular was. I never knew what regular was, because I may have my cycle in 2 weeks, and it may be 12 days, it may be 7 days, you never know. And I had a lot of intermittent pain. So I had 4 different specialists that I spoke to because I sought after extra opinions. All of them told me it was 3 males, 1 female, 1 black doctor. So it was black male, and then 1 white woman and 2 white male doctors. All of them told me that I needed a hysterectomy. I was 21, and that I would never have children, and that if I did, I kid you not, their exact words: "If you do not do this, you are stupid, because you are just causing yourself more pain." And I just looked at them and was like, "I don't care what you say, I'm going to have kids." And they were like, "Well, you're just putting yourself through pain for no reason." So then they said, "Okay, well, we're going to put you on birth control, but not take you off for the 7 days. So we don't want you to have a cycle at all. We need to take pressure off your uterus, because every time you have a cycle, you're scarring your uterus." So I was like, okay, I was like, whatever.
Yeah,
If it means you're not taking my uterus, okay.
Right.
Well, what that did was it sent me into a constant state of cycle. So by that time I moved to Atlanta, and Jifa and our sister Nzinga, a couple other people, I was in and out the hospital the whole year because I would leave for 60 days, and then I would have like 2 days of nothing. And then I would leave for another 40 days, and then I would have like 7 days of nothing and leave for another 60 days. So for a whole year, I was just cycling. I was pale, I was tired, I was in constant pain. And so finally, the doctor said, I had to go to a different doctor because the doctor I was at was like, I said, I can't do this anymore. There has to be something else. She said, let's try another 6 months. I said, I don't have another 6 months in me. I've been cycling for a year. So I went to a new doctor, and he said, we have to do surgery to stop your cycle. Because he said my lining was doing this, and it didn't know when to stop. So they had to go in and like scrape out my lining. And then that was my second surgery. So somehow miraculously after my y'all know there was some other stuff involved. Some other things were involved. But I was able to conceive my first child. And my doctor literally burst out in tears when we took the test. Because I went in thinking, my cycle's never regular. There's always something going on. So when they came back in the room and said you're pregnant, I was like, who? You talking to me? And they were like, I was like, no, for real, because y'all said I could do that. And they were like, yeah. So I had full bed rest my entire pregnancy with my first child, and I was in fear the entire time because even though I fought them, there's still a piece of me believed that I couldn't do it. Because they said you can never conceive, even if you do, your womb can never hold a child. So I was in fear up until the time that I gave birth to her. And so,
which is another point.
Yeah, another point. A whole other point.
I was scared the whole entire time. So, had her breastfed her. I didn't have a cycle while I breastfed. Hallelujah. So after I stopped breastfeeding her, and we don't want to talk about how long she breastfed because I didn't want to cycle.
Anyway, yes, she's 5. Yeah, what?
You will turn over in
kindergarten, like this.
No, she wasn't She was almost in the work right there. But after I stopped breastfeeding, my cycle came back, and again, pain. And then I ended up having to have a third surgery because the pain came and just didn't stop. Again, woke up with multiple incisions and multiple scars across my stomach because of the surgery. And then ended up conceiving my second child after that third surgery. And same thing, bed rest. Bed rest, I had bed rest in the beginning, and then they let me free for my second trimester, but then I started having complications, so I had to go back on bed rest. But got my second child here fine. Again, breastfed her, no cycle while I breastfed, and then when my cycle came back, it was regular for the first time in life. I don't know if you remember this. I was like, yo, this is how y'all do? She was like, that's how I do, because you can live your life when you have a cycle. She was like, yeah, I said, this is deep, because I never knew that from the age of 11. And so, somewhere a couple years later, she, I don't know how old Kelly was, maybe 3. One day the pain started and it didn't stop, and I knew it was bad. So it took me a minute because there's PTSD with going to the doctor. So because I knew that I always got bad news, so I was like, I knew there was going to be some more bad news. So I went back, and of course they can't see it on. That's another good point. They can't see it on ultrasound, can't see it on MRI. So really they only see it when they go inside. So we were debating, because I always fight surgery, but the pain got so bad I couldn't hide it anymore. I couldn't hide it from my children anymore. I couldn't even function. I was still working because I had to make it happen, but when we got home, I couldn't do anything but lay in the bed. So my children like laying in the bed with me doing homework, and I'm having to order food because I could not stand up. So I called my doctor and said, something's really wrong. We got to do surgery. And she said, okay, because I was fortunate to have a doctor who listened to me. And so went in to have surgery. When I woke up, she was standing there crying, holding my hand. I said, what happened? Like, I'm literally like, what? Why are you crying? What happened? She said that she apologized to me. She said, I should have pushed you harder to have surgery. And I was like, why? She said, had you not walked in here, you wouldn't have been able to walk into the hospital. And I said, what happened? She said, well, first, the endometriosis had broke through to the lining of my uterus, so my uterus there was nothing they could do to save it. And then she said there was so much lining in my stomach cavity that my internal organs had fused together. So they literally had to separate my organs. And they were like, she said they had to scrape the lining from places that, you usually wouldn't think that you would have the endometrial lining. So she said that's why I was in such severe pain. She said, because I had a high threshold for pain, because I dealt with pain for so long, and towards the end I learned how to dissociate from my pain. Like, I would be in my body, but I could kind of like pull myself away. Like if I focused enough, so because it was that bad, I just couldn't deal with it. She couldn't tell how much pain I was in. And so she said, for that, I'm sorry. And I was like, that's not on you. It's because I had to learn to deal with the pain. But so my healing was very long, but I'm on the other side of it. But there was also a lot of conversation that did not come with what it would be like once you had to have a hysterectomy. So, and I was 38 when I had to have a hysterectomy.
What are some of the, just if you can briefly talk about some of the things that come with having a hysterectomy? Like, meaning not the recovery of it, but like life now. Like, what does that look like?
So, one, they didn't tell you, they don't, I immediately went into premature menopause. So the hot flashes, dear God in heaven, right? They come from the center of your soul. There's nothing you can do about it.
And for those who don't realize, we're in hot Atlanta.
Yes.
So they have nothing on.
Hot
Atlanta summer.
No.
It's your personal summer.
Yes.
And the hottest of all.
Yes. Exactly. And it comes from the center of your soul, and I'll be like, why are my shins sweating? Like, literally, the sweat is everywhere, and you just can't control it. And so that's one thing is the hot flashes, and they're always the worst during the summer. Because I'll have them during the winter too, but they're not as frequent. And then you're cold, so you have on your blanket, and the next thing you know, you have this heat from the center of your soul, so you're throwing off everything, and nothing can touch you. And then once it's gone, you're cold again. So they wake you up in the middle of the night, so there's loss of sleep. For a couple months, I dealt with like insomnia that was connected to having being in menopause. Wasn't sleeping, exhausted, but still having to make everything happen. What else? It's harder to keep weight off. I never had to work so hard in my life to be in shape, in any kind of shape. So that's also another consideration that I didn't, no one had these conversations with me. I think that's it.
Okay.
If anything else comes up, I'll say it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So how did you have the hysterectomy affect your intimacy? Whether it be just feeling like a woman or you being...
So I was fortunate to have a beloved elder that I could speak to who kind of helped me process everything. Because even when I was coming up to the idea of, do I have to do this? Because I'm going to be honest, if you had asked me before if I was going to have any more children, I would probably say no, I have two, I'm good. But as soon as the idea of that ability being taken away from me, then it was a problem because I want to make that choice. I want that choice made for me. So then there were all the questions like, this does not take away from anybody else, anybody else's experience, anybody LGBTQ, whatever. For me personally, the thoughts were, okay, so am I still a woman if I don't have a womb? What is this gonna do? What if I meet a man who still wants children? What is that gonna look like? And so there were all these thoughts running through my head that were kind of like, and this elder was like, how many times are we going to put your body through this amount of pain? She was like, we have two beautiful blessings, and I want you to consider that, and we still need you. So, they need you, we need you. How many times how long are we gonna continue to put yourself through this? So I had to kind of come to terms with that. But there's still, thoughts when I'm meeting men like, okay, I can't meet men of a certain age because what if you still have kids? Or if I meet you and you say you don't have children, it's like, and my sister's like, don't do that. You never know.
Exactly. You can try,
but it's almost like this to keep myself from experiencing that pain,
But that intimacy piece, one is also an important part too, because if you think about on either side of the coin, right?
Yeah.
So when you have the uterus and you're going through all of 60 days of cycling and pain,
you
can't all of that.
Now that impacts
you don't
intimacy
you don't have space.
Exactly.
You know, you don't have space to be
Exactly.
who you want to be, right?
Mhm.
Because of a trillion reasons,
Right.
right?
Right.
And then if you move into the space of like depression, then you may not even find, even those moments when you're not bleeding for 60 days, you still
Right.
necessarily find that desire to want to be, you know,
Right.
intimate. So that part is once again, back to my whole, this is why it's so listen. When you go to the conversation with your GYN, that's not part of the conversation.
Right.
It's not.
You know, so you have these women who are only being treated for just this physical thing. Like, okay, this is the thing we're moving. Right. It's like, okay, there's a piece of dirt, sweep it, move on,
Well,
right? Why not let's fix the reason
Right.
why the dirt keeps on dropping from the ceiling
Right.
to the floor, right? Which is part of the conversation, right? And another thing I was thinking about as well, because I'm still gonna hit that part, is when you talk about, so you know, those of you who follow us, you know that as a modality, there are 5 of us, right? So part of Zaire is our herbalist, our medical person, all things herbal, medical connected, right? And then Lakendra is our chiropractor, and Shakimet is our massage therapist, and then Samara, who is not here at the moment, is our mental health therapist, right? So you can kind of visualize and understand how the herbal piece could probably come in, because everyone kind of knows, okay, there's herbs for things, right? And you can see where the maternal mental health piece comes in as well. But you may not necessarily be able to visualize and understand how the chiropractic and massage piece can come into play, right? So let's talk about the fact that I was thinking about this when I was thinking about her in the bed in pain, right?
Yeah.
If you are in pain, the very first thing that you do is you tighten up. Everything tightens, right? There's a rocking, there's a moving, there's a trying to find the right position, even when you're not intentionally thinking about it.
Right.
Months and months, days and days of that begin to affect your muscles. You need to release those, right? You have tension locked in there. Your ligaments and your skeletal structure, and you're constantly walking over because you're hurting, like all of those kind of things are connected, right?
Can I say
Yeah.
that's 100% true, because I can tell you that the pain changed the composition of my body. It
Yes.
changed my ability to do certain dance moves. Like I literally stopped doing African dance because there were certain things that I couldn't do anymore. And I was a little embarrassed that I couldn't do it anymore. But it's because I was always curved around my pain.
Yes.
That fetal position is what always kind of helped a little bit more with like a pillow or whatever. But even like, you know, the way that I hold stress in my body, like my body became a little bit more rounded.
Yes.
So it literally
Yes.
changed the composition of my body. And I'm still dealing with it. There's still things about that I can't stand. And I just have to remember my journey.
Yeah. So it's definitely a piece. I don't know if you want you guys to speak to any of that, you know.
I mean, you just covered it. But something could be happening in your womb, but literally it spreads out to everything, every limb. And massage works on all 10 body systems. So whereas people may think of it just as a topical relaxation, you know, type of thing, literally it will help with all of those things. And one, when you first think of it, if I'm working on the womb or the abdomen, that is focused on that area, but what about the rest of the body? So now that you've said literally the fact that you were curved in, it helps to understand that it doesn't just happen in that area. A massage is not going to just happen in that area. So dealing with the stress that you have as well from consistently being in a cycle, in the pain, you know, all of that affects us emotionally, mentally, and physically. So massage again does all of that. So it just makes sense to have that as a way to not only take the edge off, but allow you to thrive and live, you know, in the midst of figuring out the pain, in the midst of working through herbs, and then to go to Lakendra, the muscles are pulling on the bones.
Yeah.
The muscle is pulling on the skeletal systems and the
And then also, even though this is an internal thing, there are visceral somatic reflexes. So the nerves that are innervating the uterus and ovaries, some of those same nerves innervate the muscles in the back. So the pain may not necessarily just be from an awkward posture, but it can be because the nerves are irritated that go to those organs are also affecting the musculoskeletal system as well. So it all kind of it all works.
I want to give an example that's not related to the womb, but just so that you guys can think about it, just holistically in general in your lifetime. So my oldest son used to always complain about stomach discomfort, especially when nervous, any kind of activity like that, got anxious, tight, nervous. He would have stomach complaints. Didn't really have problems with like regularity, but definitely would always complain about stomach issues. I happened to take him to someone who is a chiropractor, and then there's other holistic treatments as well. And in her assessment of him, she noticed that his skull did not sit exactly straight on his spine, right?
Mm-hmm.
So she didn't want to take care of it herself, so she had me drive him way up the way, like way up 85, we're love. Okay, to another chiropractor who specializes in cranial
sacrum.
yeah, that whole situation right over here, right? And so he was able to use this machine that showed that because his skull was slightly off, it was leaning on and pinching, so to speak, the nerves that actually ran to the stomach. So the stomach wasn't functioning at its greatest. It was irritated, right? So it was easy for him to be. So if you think about this, and this is me just putting my mind together with physics, right? If he's tense about something, anxious, and he holds that tenseness in here, and he goes like this just because he's really irritated about something, immediately that's extra squeezing on the nerves that are already being squeezed.
Right.
What happens next? His stomach starts hurting, right? So they did some things. They didn't even do any major things. Some of you all might think chiropractic and think crack. It isn't necessarily always that. Like they legit just laid him properly on a certain kind of pillow consistently for long periods of time, and it rearranged itself, and he doesn't have that as an issue anymore. Okay, so it's a side note, but I want you to kind of realize what she's speaking to, right? So you do have that, some of that, and that kind of transitions into the conversation about, let's look at what's the start process, right? Instead of just like scraping tissue off of everything all the time it goes up, what is the start? Right?
Upstream.
Right, exactly. So if, some of it may be, because let's talk about it, there were like generations of people born cesarean, right? Means they're tugged and pulled, right? Or even vaginally, they can be tugged and pulled, right? So you have all of that happening, which is probably how my son happened, because he was a cesarean twin, right? So they're pulling and tugging him out, right? And he was 1 pound, so that's easily movable. You have all of that happening, so you may even have a series of women, youngers who are being born with this alignment, right? It's affecting the nervous system, that's affecting the uterus, right? And then you have how we sit, how we sleep, how we eat, all of this kind of stuff that happens, right? And Zaire and I were talking to somebody recently, and she was talking about, I'm going to have her talk about it some more, but she was talking about all the products that we use, right, that have estrogen-based things in them, right? We just go to the store and grab the best Bath and Body, the best this, the best that, people to smell good, but we don't take into consideration, right, that these things are affecting our cycle, they're affecting our hormones, they're affecting inside. Everything responds to each other. It's a chemical reaction, doesn't know how not to, right? So you have that happening. We're using all of these special cosmetics, especially our young girls. That's all they do when they get their money. Is want to go to the store and get all of that kind of stuff. Right? So you're doing all of that. And then on top of that, which is what I tell my teenage girls in the office, is when we come to you, and one of the first things Zaire's going to tell you, or Holistic Heal is going to talk to you, is about your meat intake, right? So I want you guys to think about this. I like meat. Meat's great, right? So I'm not here to tell you don't eat it, right? But I always tell my teenage people, if I shut down every grocery store, let's think Walking Dead right now, okay? And you have to go live out in the bush. I don't know how many of you can outrun or ever try to race your dog down the street, right? But half of us are not hunters, okay? The act of catching an animal to then eat the animal is a process. You do not have access to a whole section in your grocery store that has 1 trillion different types of meat that you can then eat all day in large consumptions. The human body is not designed to eat meat 24/7. Right? So all of our young teenagers who are now starting off from young, right? Because we sit there and give our babies the chicken nuggets at like age 0. Right? So they are now consuming all this consistently, and then you want to know why they're showing up with this painful menstrual cycle, these fibroids, and then eventually this endometriosis, right? So we've got to talk about that. When we talk about the holistic part of it, we're talking about getting the whole engine working properly. You will take the heck care out of your car that you like. You will take care of your phone. You go through like all types of things to catch it before it strikes, right? But you don't flip, right? You don't go flip to catch your phone. You get cute covers, you get cute everything, but you don't do that to this, right? So we have to start right there.
Mm-hmm. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And the one thing people forget, basic anatomy and physiology.
Said the tampons too, sorry.
Oh,
Yes,
we gonna have
yes.
crazy. We gonna talk about tampons. The skin is the largest body organ we have.
Yeah.
Okay? In real time, we put so much stuff on our skin every day, consistently, every day. Makeup, oils, and what people also too. How many of y'all actually wash your clothes when y'all buy them from the store?
Before you wear them.
Before you wear them.
Before.
Anybody? Am I the only one?
Yeah.
Yeah, but cause think about it. We're not.
It's not gonna look the same.
It might.
You don't want your shirt to be ashy.
You know?
Look, no. Well, you know, some of us keep the tags on for other reasons.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I know, right? But no, because they put fire retardants and chemicals on clothing. You know, especially, you know, I'm not giving no, you know, I'm not saying anything about China or anything like that, but if you have clothes that are being mass produced in other countries, literally it's taking at least 2 to 3 weeks to get from there here. Then it sits in a warehouse for another 2 or 3 weeks, maybe even months. Then it's pulled off the shelf and taken to the store in your local area where it may sit on the shelf for God knows how long. These are fibers, and anybody, if there's any, you know, seamstresses or fashion designers online, y'all can attest to this. They put chemicals on the clothing to retain the color, to retain protection in case any little critters get into the boxes while they're shipping or sitting, you know, collecting dust in somebody's warehouse. Then they get into the store, you know, they fluff them out. I used to work retail. Fluff it out, we get it out of the bag, and, you know, we put it on. But what's on that? No one knows. Wash your clothes before that, you know. And then, okay, so that's one. And then I remember back when I was a teenager, the whole thing where you know, we were processing our hair, getting the perms, and yeah, it was directly correlated to fibroids and the uterus and everything like that. Again, the head. You put on your head. You only got one of those. You know, and it's going straight from here to here. There's a connection. You know.
You're so permanent 2-year-old.
Yeah, just for me.
Exactly. You know, and you know, like the sister was saying about how she was bent over, how this sister was saying how it pulls on the muscles and atrophy your muscles. This sister's talking about the ligaments getting tight. If you're doing all of this for 60 plus days, guess what else you're not doing? You're not eating.
Yeah.
You're not drinking. You know what I'm saying? So now you have a process where your daily elimination has now ceased to start working correctly. You can't feed your body the fuel that it needs to heal itself because you're too busy cramped over in pain or overdosing on, you know,
I was saying that medication that you're taking when you're not eating what you're supposed to be eating, so then that there's paying for those medications. That's also messing up your system.
Exactly. And like she was saying, her liver, she's surprised her liver held up.
Thank God it did.
Yeah.
And in none of your experience were any of your body systems taken into consideration by any of your doctors, or did they only focus on your womb?
Only focus on
Right.
Well,
and there was
you
no
know,
conversation about anything.
Right.
No conversation.
And that's the point.
That's the point. I'm just like never, not even one curious, never. It wasn't until they literally went in for this directly that they saw how they affected all your other systems.
Exactly.
Right.
And even, you know, when I was going
Right.
into the emergency room, they knew and I'm just gonna be transparent. I had 800 milligram Motrin, I had Vicodin, and I had Excedrin PM.
You got this.
At the same time, I took all of that, and Excedrin PM was supposed to put you to sleep. I was in so much pain, it only took an edge off the pain. So I'm still wide awake, and they knew I took all those, and then I would go into the emergency room, and they would give me more medication on top of that, knowing that I took all of those things. And so it was just, and there was no conversation about that.
No
So
responsibility.
no,
Basically, caring for you and no responsibility.
no.
And so that is true.
No,
That's absolutely true.
that is it.
But what I want to do is also more so than sit on that side for this particular moment. Is also to impress upon the fact that is why you have to look at what type of medical system you want to use to deal with a certain thing, right? Or combining them all.
Right. Yeah.
right?
And be your own
So
advocate.
the responsibility is our own.
Yes,
The
so that you
responsibility is our
can do
own
that.
to do that.
Because you have to be able, because there may be a moment where you need, you know, if right now this immediate situation, okay, that tissue is about to like cause your kidney is to wither, right? So we need to stop that, right? And maybe yes, there's some herbal process and some acupuncture and something else that would take that time. We might not have that time. Okay, we may need to go in and do just that, right? But understanding the context of everything, right? Knowing that we need to do the right herbal teas to be drinking and taken care of. We need to come out of that, and based on having surgery, we need to take like massage out the kinks and then all of the adhesions, right? We need to get at those with the massage therapy, right? We need to get it like you were laying down for that long period of time. Your body, you need a chiropractor, you need to readjust and do all of those things. All of that has to be taken into consideration at the same time. You know, even for me, I talk about this a lot, and I know if Tamara was here, I'd have her speak on it as well. One of the things that I have my moms do, my doula clients do, if they have to go in for a cesarean, is to talk to your body, prep your body for the fact that it's about to get cut into, right? There's a mental conversation that turns into a chemical reaction that then allows for your body to say, okay, you didn't just cut me and I knew that was about to happen. So my whole body doesn't go, right? Like my brain literally goes, okay, no problem. We just had that conversation. We just talked about the fact that something's going to happen to that organ, this organ, and that organ. Okay, I'm good. I got that. That's a thing. Like, I'm not being extra. It really is a thing. If you go in for a tattoo, if you go in for an ear piercing, if you go in to be waxed,
Yes.
Hello. Conversation.
Okay? You're going to do it, and you know it's going to be painful, but you want it, and so you get it.
Yes.
Right? But you prepped your brain on how to receive it.
Right.
Right? So it's the same conversation. So all of that has to go into play.
And educate yourself. The beauty of nowadays is legitimately everything's on freaking YouTube. Everything.
Which can be scary.
Everything.
Yes.
It's very scary, but very educational at the same
Which
time.
means correctly.
Exactly.
But yeah,
Go ahead.
No, go ahead. It's the education. I guess the message that we want to say is that we take the time when we want to buy a new car. We're going to look at all these different
Consumer reports.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. We're going to look at the different dealers, what is going to give us a better bang for a buck. And when it comes to our health care, we're dictated by what insurance we have, and only the providers that our insurance provides. Whether or not we have the money or not, we don't go into it looking at it as far as, does this align with my lifestyle, my philosophy?
Yeah.
When it comes down to with mothers, you know, looking for a caregiver when they're going to give birth, you know, taking that step to understand what hospital is this, what is their, you know, what is their cesarean rate, what are they wanting to, what is their message? And I think the responsibility is for us to start young, I mean, let you segue into our younger girls to let them know what they need to know and how to care for themselves and how to choose care providers that are going to be in alignment with what they want and not just push medication or just push surgery, and not just go with, you know, whoever's on the bill, you know?
And then they say it. So
And they said it, and that's the thing. And what they say isn't always, what they say isn't with our best interest. It's, you know, it could be who's supporting them. It could be the, you know, the pill companies. It can be whatever rate.
There's a knowledge thing.
Exactly.
I mean, they're taught what they're taught.
They're taught what they're taught.
You can't. That's what they're taught.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what it
So
is.
it's not their responsibility.
But
Okay, real quick, we get to do 2 minutes. One thing I want everybody to remember: if we needed this much surgery, the human species would be gone by now. Okay, can we just?
surgery?
There wasn't. Not like this.
all the time.
You know, like I went back and read the Evers papers and stuff, and they were doing surgery. Like they were cracking people's skulls open to remove tumors and survived. You know what I'm saying? It's the approach. Not the bad part about allopathic medicine is that if we can't figure it out now, we're gonna just cut it out.
It's a science experience.
It's
It's working science
literally-
experience. Like
Literally.
Yeah.
So please remember that. If it's your dentist, if it's a podiatrist, if it's a urologist, I don't care what ologist it is, remember something. Human beings have been on this planet for a good long time. We're still here. Something else was done, okay? It wasn't just this quick fix, cut it out. You know what I'm saying? You know, sometimes you may have to go to the bush and eat that nasty planting slug or whatever, or whatever.
She got you.
And the reason I did that is because I did all of that. She will tell you I should sit at the table like with tears in my eyes, eating nasty stuff like, and I hate nasty like flavors and stuff, but I did all of that so that I could have my
And it's a real thing. There's a reason why, for those who've actually been working with their womb, there's a thing called a Mayan abdominal massage. That's an indigenous practice that comes out of South America.
Mm-hmm.
Hello, it's a massage.
And all of our other, cultures were doing it, not just the Mayan, popularized by that, but it's something we always tended to the women intuitively.
Yeah.
Yes.
And we're coming away from that. We've come away from that.
Absolutely. For the sake of time,
Yeah, sorry.
I definitely think this is going to have to be a two-part, well, it's going to be a multiple part, because the conversation repeats itself in various different aspects of who it is we are. So definitely we'll come back to it. If there's anybody who had a question specifically, definitely take the time to chat it in there right now so we can kind of respond to that. If not, then we'll kind of maybe just give some final pointers about some things related to making some changes when it comes to how you take care of endometriosis, prevent it, etc. And then do a final reading of sorts, I guess, to get us ready. I kind of sort of did. I did in a way when I talked about just how we eat the meat and all that, and then the lotions and all that. That was kind of one of my
I was going to say, connected to that while we're waiting for any questions, I had 2 daughters, so I had a fear that because they say that it's, hereditary, right? So I had a fear as soon as I knew that I was carrying girls that I didn't want to I didn't want them to go through anything I went through. So I've been very intentional when it comes to my daughters. So I stopped eating meat, when I was younger, when I was first diagnosed. And because I don't eat meat, they don't eat much. They eat some when they go with their dad, but they don't eat a whole lot of meat. I know that stress was another big thing that added, especially I was in grad school through I said I was in grad school and it went like it went from here to this.
Yes.
And what's interesting is, connecting the dots. Remember I said it was regular for a time, but I went back to school to finish my PhD, and that's when I ended up having to have my hysterectomy. So that stress
triggered
kicked it in overdrive.
Yeah.
So my children don't have the same stresses in their lives that I had as a child. I had a lot of stress. I'm not from around these parts. So I had a stressful upbringing. But my children don't have that stress. They don't have the same diet. They eat good foods. My parents didn't. We ate everything. And lots of fast food and So my daughter's already drinking raspberry tea before she started her cycle and all that stuff. So I've been very intentional. And I almost cried because her first cycle was 3 days and she had no pain. And I was
Were you jealous?
no, but I was like,
Joyous.
I was like, oh my goodness,
Yeah,
this is a beautiful thing.
You carry that thinking that was going to be their lot.
Yes.
Yeah. Real quick, I see the comment, hey Anna, about postpartum, and that was actually me that responded, will do, although that was a different account of woman. But we definitely will take that into consideration and do that as well. It's absolutely good topic to talk about. Postpartum.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So anyone has any questions, we'll kind of keep on scrolling and see what's going on in the meantime. Hey Tiffany. Real quick,
So Dr. T-Mac, she suggested maybe writing a letter to the body as part of the self-talk.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That's definitely even something I talk about, with my doula clients as well. Always writing a letter to the body about anything is definitely important. When my twins were premature in the NICU, that was definitely. I didn't write a letter. I talked to them and literally went from the brain to the toe. Every single piece and part of your body is going to be okay. And they were. Their NICU period was really free of anything. It was just kind of nurturing while they were there. Okay, so yes.
So from Anna Sunshine, she asked, she was curious about your pregnancies and how the birth went, and if you had any extra issues due to the endometriosis.
Okay, so my doula is sitting here too. And she was my doula with both of my babies. So what I can say is, being on full bed rest by the time I went to give birth to Naya, I had no muscles left. So that was interesting. And I wasn't able to get up and start walking until like I was in labor. So I was in pre-labor for like 2 weeks. I was like I would have,
You like
I would have contractions for like 15 minutes apart, for like 2 hours, and then I would have nothing for a couple hours, and so like so
I think
I had a lot of.
2 weeks.
No, it was 2 weeks.
7
It was
days.
2 weeks. It was literally 2 weeks. And then I remember I was so mad at the nurse because she tore my membranes without asking me. And it was a jarring thing. But so that piece, and because my level of pain, and I remember Jifa and I talked about this later, because I went like 18 hours, was it like 18 hours with nothing, because I was trying to do no medication. And then the doctor told me that I was 7 centimeters, and my contractions wouldn't come back down. Like they would just go on like this. And so I was like, I have to be ready, right? What's going on? So they came back to check me, and the doctor was away, so the nurse said, oh, you're 6 centimeters. And in my mind, I was like, oh, you can't take me backwards. Where's the epidural? Epidural? And so, that I think my pain tolerance, that was a whole thing. And I understood pain a little bit differently because of endometriosis, but I think that was, but we realized when I had my second daughter that my body was going to do that. And so I remember telling Jifa, I need to push. And the doctor was like, no, you're only 4 centimeters. I was like, no, my body's doing something different. I swear my body's doing something different. I need to push. And I did push, and her head came out. And so my body, it opened up so quickly. But yeah, just the experience when I was giving birth was a little bit different. And it was partly because I couldn't move as much before, and because of the way that I was holding, rounding my body around the pain. It was hard to open up to give birth.
Yeah. I think you also approached pregnancy different too, because it was twofold. There was that it actually happened, right? And so now I have this like crystal glass thing that I have to, nothing can happen to this, So the way you moved around being pregnant, if someone didn't know you, they might not understand why you were so one and all and in love of being pregnant, but also just like this is like this thing that cannot be broken, right? So everything I do is calculated. This is my priority. I cannot do that. I will do this. No, I cannot do that. You'd be like, oh, let's go. Like, nope, can't.
Well, I was on bed rest the first time, so I couldn't do anything.
Second time. In both of those kind of situations, so it plays out. Good question, Anna.
I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't do it.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. Are you trying to argue with me? I'm sorry. I'm pregnant. I really did that.
That's really, not to all say,
Right.
You have to table that because it's not good.
Right.
But catch me next year. Did you have experienced pain throughout your pregnancy as well from the endometriosis?
I did. And then I had spotting that was consistent. So I had pain during the whole time, and I had spotting. So that's why they kept sitting me back down. Yeah.
She was a case.
Yeah. Because I mean, not everyone has
And then
that.
there was a fear every time I felt a pain.
Yeah.
Something wrong? Like what's
Right.
happening?
Wow.
What's going on? She's like, it's okay. Breathe.
The memoir will be out 2020.
I'm actually in the middle. I already have like chapters written. I have to finish.
23, 24.
It's gonna come.
Soon.
It'll be out before this year's over.
Okay, I'll do that. You heard it here first.
What did your postpartum look like? Like how did that go?
So with my older child, it was interesting. I did end up having postpartum depression, but it was just really because it was just me with her 24/7, and I didn't even realize it. Like I didn't feel depressed or anything, but I would just be sitting in the house, like the windows would be drawn, and they would come over like, "You good? I'm fine." They're like, "Oh, you want to let some sun in?" I'm like, "Oh, is it not sun?" My healing went well, I would say.
That was actually.
It was actually not that bad.
Her best time, so to speak, would always be her postpartum. Just her energy, her levels, her body. Like, even though the postpartum, like the depression part of it. But as far as like her womb, it was almost like her womb was happy. Her womb was happy to have experience, and it healed her womb in those spaces. So she would have like that year to 2 years or so before, like in between those times, where she had like everything was. Life was great.
Yeah, I had no cycle for 2 years. I was skipping. My cycle came back. I was like, I forgot women do this. Okay. Yes.
Anything?
Samara said 1 in 7 women experience postpartum depression and anxiety. 1 in 7.
And then
1, 2,
Yeah.
3, 4.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
And I didn't even realize it because I didn't feel sad. It was just my
Absolutely.
energy was low.
Absolutely. We miss you, Tammy. Okay, so if there's not, are there any other things? We're talking which is kind of okay.
No, she just said, she's just making a
Okay.
Thank you.
No, thank
Thank
you
you
for
for
sharing your experience.
And we definitely want to be able to do that in the future. Like any topics that we have, we can kind of pull people in to share the live with us and stuff. We definitely want to do that because one day there definitely will be an actual space, living room space where you all can come join us, and this will happen in person, right? Soon come. It won't just be you guys watching us from a distance because we definitely want that. And speaking of times that we are going to be getting together, June. You're supposed to know dates when you want to promote something. Not the 19th, the weekend before that.
The 12th?
Yeah, this Saturday, right?
Yeah.
June 12th. Okay, June 12th. We are going to be having our first teen one-day retreat. Okay? And it's focused talking with our youth about womb life, all things related to that. Okay? They're going to have some interactive sessions with us. Break into groups based on age. It'll be starts at ages 13 to 18 here in Atlanta. There's unfortunately not going to be a virtual component to this because we want that to have that space, right? We want to be able to have that experience. We are going to do it consistently. So as we grow, we will definitely bring that for you guys to be a part of. Follow us on both our IG and our Facebook, The Womb Collective, and you will be able to see notifications about registering your daughter, your niece, your best friend's child down the street, whomever. All of our young girls need it so that we can begin to change and empower them and change their womb journey, right? So that they don't come in with all of this pain that they're experiencing. Even if it's not endometriosis, remember there's fibroid history, there's heavy menstrual cycle history, and they need that. Just conversation of knowing what it is, being okay with it, right? So there's that, normalizing it. And then for the older ones of us, more mature, sorry. We'll be doing our first womb wellness retreat, October 21st to the 24th in the Georgia Mountains. That actually is already live. You can hit the link in our IG page and the link in bio and register for that. There are limited spaces, so get your girlfriend, get your best friend, get your sister, and get on board. It's going to be a wonderful, really 3 days of talking, healing, bonding, eating good food that is all to nourish the womb. And this experience is going to be really great. So definitely get on board with that. And meet us quarterly for our lives. We will let you know
August 15th
what all we will be doing. August 15th is our next live. All right? We will let you know what the topic is. We definitely had a good suggestion on this particular one, and then we had a good one the last time. So we will absolutely let you know what's going on in our world. Follow us, share. And please remember, we're not just here to do lives, right? We have clients, we are open, we take care of people, and there's definitely this need, right? So we have 4 different packages. We have a postpartum, we have a perinatal, we have general womb wellness, and we have fertility. And in all of those packages, you get a boutique effect of all of us, all right? In your healing, we talk to you, do consultations, we figure out exactly what you need on your road, and then we join this journey with you. We're healing generations, one womb at a time.
Yes.
Okay? So with that, let's all take a collective big breath of goodness for the week. Yeah. Hold it. Oh, wait, love it. Wait. And then just breathe out all the other stuff we went from last week and the other day. Go. Yes. All right, so have a wonderful week, a wonderful month, rest of your month, a wonderful evening, good sleep, enjoy your family, good food, cook with love, drink your water. Always drink your water.
Always.
Drink wine is good, drinking good teas, we like that too.
Yes.
Move your body, yes, thank you.
Move
Move
your
your body. All right?
Even if that means dancing in your house with
That's right, get it.
music turned on.
Just move
right, so we look forward to seeing you all August 15th. All right, talk to you soon. You all have a wonderful evening. Take care. Bye bye.